Right, so triggers. Here's one I've set up earlier. I'm just going to press play and then I'll explain it afterwards. Right, so triggers you can use in many different little ways just to add some variety to the mission. So what I've done there is basically triggers obviously can be found here, triggers here, waypoints there, waypoints I'll talk to you in a second about. So a trigger, once you've placed it down, generally there's one of these three here. This one here is just like if you want it down as like, say he died, that would set off that trigger, for example. It doesn't really need an area of effect or control. So this blue box obviously for the trigger is its effective zone. You can change that by the attributes or by using the drag box. So type, obviously you've got the guarded options there, end of scenario, I don't really use that. This one, activation, so you can set it to any player, anybody, blue, like your faction. Seized by faction is basically how close, how many sort of like scale of like 1 to 10 ratio, the one faction has above the others. Or radio triggers. The radio triggers, again, you'd use that, for example, with the no area trigger. I do use those quite often. But for this one, I set it up as any player. Activation type, present, not present, or detected by. The first two self-explanatory. Detected by is, as it says, our objects are in an area and are discovered by the given side. So, you can say you put down two objects and then you link them to this particular trigger. So effectively what this means is when my player, so any player, runs into the box or past that first line edge into the box, it will set off this grenade, and it will also do another action which I'll discuss in a second. All you need to do, like for example, you can set it to smoke grenades, changing of the time, fast forwarding time, pausing time, fire support, so you can put that down there and a mortar would drop. But what you would do is right click, do it on the trigger first, right click on the trigger, connect, sync to, and then click, and then you would end up with this blue line connecting the two. And then obviously, like I say, you can link, like here's an in scenario, there's another trigger box linked up. This one's set to different, because in my scenario I had the AI end the scenario. For example, the AI is running away, you could end it as like failed scenario, so the AI got away. So anybody rather than any player or particular faction. So the waypoints, that's the next thing. So these waypoints, which are here, they tell an AI to do a particular task. You can do a similar thing in Zeus, but this is like obviously pre-set up in the game. So obviously what I've done here is I've linked it to a trigger, so when my guy runs into the box, it sets this guy in motion. So what you do is you place down whatever you want to do, so you could, movement. You could have a vehicle here, and then basically, vehicle get in, so have this one and like sync that to the vehicle, and then the last sort of movement thing, he'd get into the vehicle. But what you need to do is when you're putting more down, you have him selected, you click, for example, move. Obviously this is from the end because it does it one by one, but so you press that one, and if you want to have multiple, you hold down control and you can just keep on adding the same ones in, so multiple move orders. One thing I did forget to mention in the attributes is obviously you can double click on the individual and you get all these options here and the standard options. If you double click on the unit tag, That's for a group, but it allows you to select whether that dude is running, walking, if there's a squad, their formation, their behaviour, so whether they're stealthy, fully geared up for combat, they're safe, or they're they don't, their outlook doesn't change, so to speak, whether there's enemy there or not, and obviously their rules of engagement. So what you would do for the trigger is right click on the trigger, always start with the trigger, connect, set waypoint activation, and then select the first waypoint, and that will literally set off when I walk into this box. That will cause this guy to run. It'll activate this waypoint, so he will run from there and then follow the zigzag, and then he will close the scenario as we saw. That's pretty much it. You can do it for QRFs and vehicles. So for example, I better not choose up 4 because I'll end up killing myself. If I was to choose this and put it down there and do this similar sort of thing, I could, that would turn off. I could have a load of movement waypoints here, but this guy is going to run to there, and then what I'm going to do is select the vehicle waypoint. Where is it? Where's movement gone? There. So move, and loiter. If you wanted to have it so that they're doing a patrol, for example, and they just start off the patrol, you don't obviously need the trigger. You select the last one, the last move order, and then you scroll up on there, and you got cycle. Just click that. Again, you can do that in Zeus, but it's depending if you've already pre-placed them. So if I do right click, connect, select waypoint activation, click on that. Now let's see if it works. Sometimes triggers can be a bit finicky in editor practice mode, so to speak. So no movement from the chopper. As soon as I run past a flag, the grenade goes down, grenade goes off, he starts running, hits the trigger at some point. After a few seconds, chopper turns on. Now it should take off, and it should move. So there you go, and it's following. It'll probably make a couple of adjustments. So yep, it's moving off. It's moving off to its loiter position. Obviously loitering is it should just fly around the area until it receives further orders. So yeah, it's circling back around. But yeah, that's pretty much those. Like I say, you can get more into them, which I'll go into quickly in the next part.